Yeah.
It soothes your attachment issues so much because I'm like, oh, I'm just a chained up little sex slave. He trained me to be able to come on command. I tried to make a friendship work.
Dude, you sound like me.
For me, the deepest BDSM I've been involved in is the psychological side, where like it's just a fucking look and you're like, oh, I'm fucked. Those vulnerable emotional parts of you are deemed as feminine. Feminine is deemed as weak, and so you guys have to shut it down. And then that hit into a deeper wound of like, everyone that loves me leaves me. And everyone that's told me they won't abandon me abandons me. That's where this podcast was leading. You could have just asked me on a date, Adam.
Welcome everyone back to the True Growth Podcast. I'm with Erin Kyna. She is a sexuality coach and healer.
Correct.
Erin, well, thanks for coming on the podcast. We connected through Cafe Coach when you did a very interesting workshop. It was the most interesting one I've been to. That's why I thought I'd have you on the podcast to learn more about sexuality from a man and woman's perspective and relationships and a bit about your work and what you do. So tell me a bit more about what you do.
Amazing. Wow, big question to start. No pressure. I do lots of things, and I've been a coach since 2011. So it seems like my offering continues to develop as I develop as a person. So I feel really lucky that my path is my purpose. So as my life kind of evolved through the realms of spirituality, I started coaching a lot of people through their spiritual awakenings and supporting them through those kind of transitions. And then as I went through a massive sexual awakening myself, people around me started having sexual awakenings just from being in my presence. Two of my coaches did it, like a business coach and a spiritual coach. They both had big sexual awakenings. So they really kind of pushed me into it, like, this is the work you're here to do, even though I had a lot of resistance to identifying as a sexuality coach or what it would mean for, like, what my family would think of me and what society would think of me. So once I cleared all of that stuff, it actually just made perfect sense that, of course, I'm supporting people with sexuality. So that looks like a lot of different things. At this point, it looks like a lot of coaching, which is working in consciousness and energy, but not actually physical contact with my clients. But that's not to say that that's not something that may come in the future, because I have this vision, this passion of actually helping people really learn how to express their sexuality better or fuck better, essentially. And
it's a good path.
it's a great thing to coach, really. You know, like if you do the gym, you go to the gym, you train. If you've only ever been to the gym by yourself, or you've watched other people, or you've just trained with buddies, the differences that would come from getting an actual coach to spot you and refine you would take your fitness to the next level that maybe you couldn't have reached on your own. So it's the same kind of thing. Like, sexuality is a skill that none of us actually learned. We all fumbled around as teenagers, kind of learning from each other or maybe watching porn. But apart from that, where do we really get our practical sex education?
That's true.
So I know people that are also sexuality coaches who are very clearly, to me, not fulfilling their sexual potential, because as you learn theoretically, it's still not the same as actually having it demonstrated or embodying it. So that's an idea that's sitting out there in the ethos right now that I'd love to bring into reality at some point.
And what is a sexual awakening?
I went to this, prior to going to sex parties, they often have a munch, which is like this vanilla catch-up in a public setting where you can kind of vet people and get to know other people and then let them know that there's further events in the community. So I was at a munch the other day, and there was a couple there, and she was quite clearly kinky, and she was German. She was super cute, actually. And then the guy that she was with was Australian and brand new to it all. And when I said I'm a sexuality coach, he was like, oh, yeah? And what does that do? And I'm like, I help people fuck better. Oh yeah? And what might that look like? And he was so good. And his girlfriend was sitting there like, you need her. Yes, you need her. Like, listen to her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So what does a sexual awakening look like? I'd say it looks different for all of us, just the same as a spiritual awakening. Like, it's going to hit us, and it doesn't hit everyone. Some people will never evolve their sexuality, and that's okay. But for some people, if you're not consciously working on it, sometimes your spirit, your soul wants you to work through some of the stuff that we've collected from society and ancestrally and all those other things that stand in the way of our power or potential. So sexual awakening is just one of those times in life where like it explodes out of you, and whether that's through working with a partner or maybe studying tantra or something like that, it's like where you go from very mainstream levels of sexuality, like everyone's doing it, to really understanding this is something way bigger, and all of a sudden the doors open and the potential unlocks and things are just like transcendental almost.
Yeah. Do you think you have to be in a relationship to explore that?
I don't want to say yes. Because
I don't want to say no.
Exactly. Because there's something that happens through partnership that cannot be accessed alone. It's undeniable, just the mechanics of it. Like there's two energies exchanging. We're mirroring something back to each other. Like I would love to think that I can go to these places on my own sexually. And I can if there's a partnered connection in existence somewhere. But as a standalone sexual being, I haven't been able to reach the same places sexually or spiritually. So I think having a partner is definitely beneficial to really get to the maximum of what we can do. Like we learn so much in relationships that as a single person you might think, yeah, I've got my shit together, I'm all good, and then you get in a relationship and you're just a triggered mess. So sexuality is the same. Partner is going to show you something different from going there alone. So it's absolutely possible to go there alone, but the depth of connection that can happen mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually through partnership, through trust building and bonding over time takes you to a completely different place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was in a relationship where we definitely had great sex. It was great, like we explored, but the problem I find is when that relationship ends.
Yep. Oh,
it hurts so much.
Oh, man.
It hurts so much.
I know.
Because the sex is so good. Like you go to like great levels, like you explode, there's so much trust, like you do things that you just never thought you'd ever do.
Exactly.
And then once that ends,
it's like
it's
the door
so hard.
closes.
Honestly, it's even hard for me to have sex now. Like I feel like something's missing. Do you know what I mean? It's super hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely. Do you think there's a worry about when people do that, especially for men? I think there's definitely a worry for men to like open up, anyways.
Yeah.
Like into relationships and explore their sexuality. And do you have any advice for like, say, someone like me who's like been through that, ended a relationship, and is still hurt by it all?
Well, I'm in the same boat.
Oh, you
I really feel the grief of losing access to that part of you that no one's seen before, that no one's cherished before, that no one's desired. Like if other people can't see it, you kind of go around with this unconscious, unknowing that you're not quite fulfilled, but you don't know why. And then you have a connection like that that's just so vulnerable and so mind-blowing, and you share parts of yourself that no one's ever seen before, and that person wants you and desires you and craves you, and then you lose that. Oh my God, the pain is so deep, and easily the stories come back. I'm never going to get that again. I'm never going to find someone who can fuck me like that ever again. But that's all scarcity. Like I don't actually believe it to be true, but there's this unraveling. Like a lot of the work I do is in the realms of BDSM, and so we talk about submissive training, where you actually are neurologically training like a Pavlovian response. You're submissive so that the desire is the same, so the sexual expression is the same. So with my previous partner, he trained me to be able to come on command, and he could literally just use his voice with no physical contact and make me come. But so much of that is the sound of his voice and his energy. So literally on a biological level, I'm wired to him in that way. So when that relationship ended, there was no deconditioning. It's almost like being militarized in a way. You know, they're trained to be very submissive, follow command, do what you're told. And it takes a long time to get to that point. And then if you leave the military and you just get bumped out the back door with no support, people crash.
Yeah.
So in the same way, that's how I felt. It was like, oh my God, I can't access that inside of myself anymore. No one's ever seen me like that. No one's loved me like that. Nobody's wanted that from me. And my sexuality is very intimidating to a lot of people. So to have someone who just like couldn't get enough of it and needed to consume it all the time, I felt like loved in a way I've never felt loved before. So it's been roughly a year since he and I have had no contact. And right now, literally fresh this week, I'm just entering the next relationship where I feel like that guy can reach certain places inside of me that only that previous partner reached. And so even though I'm going there and that's beautiful, it's also so mingled with sadness. Like there's actually so much healing that's happening, because I realize, okay, he wasn't the only one. And here's the next person that can take me deeper, and I can take him deeper. And even though I know this will be casual, it'll only be 3 weeks because he's visiting, we've both committed to being all in for that 3 weeks. and just fully face ourselves and both push each other and be willing to look at whatever comes up and not be afraid, because there's so much fear. So I think if we're willing to do the inner work and we are reflecting on that past relationship, what did we gain from it? Why did it end? What have I learned about myself? How can I show up better? What am I going to take from that into my next relationship? And you don't fall into those scarcity beliefs, then you will absolutely attract it again.
Dude, I don't want a fucking relationship ever again. I might turn gay. Like, I really do not want a relationship ever.
It doesn't
again.
help. Trust me, I've been gay for a very long time as well. There's equally as many problems.
Oh, no.
All relationships. But I can understand, and I feel like for the masculine, maybe it's harder to face those vulnerabilities that relationships show you. And so the tendency for the masculine is to shut down and close up and never let anyone else in. You can see it in guys who got heartbroken from their first girlfriend and never opened again. You know, the world doesn't let you be vulnerable. This is how the patriarchy has damaged the masculine. Those vulnerable emotional parts of you are deemed as feminine. Feminine is deemed as weak. And so you guys have to shut it down, and you're not allowed to go out in the world and say, hey, I'm really heartbroken right now, or I want to cry about this. You just kind of have to muscle up and be tough about it. So that doesn't give you as much freedom to do that healing as it does for us. Of course it's possible, but I feel like for men, it's a bit harder to access those vulnerable states 100%. And do that healing work.
We don't really have many people to talk to. It's weird to, like, it's not weird. In my world, it's not weird, but we don't have like circles. If I go to my friends and say, they'll just be like, fucking man up, come on, like just get after it.
Exactly.
Even though deep down I'm like dead.
My heart.
It hurts so much. It hurts. It still hurts now. It still hurts.
I understand.
That's fascinating stuff. Why did you end your last relationship?
I had one boundary when we got together, one standard. And when I told him that, basically the easiest way to summarize it is I don't choose men who choose easy. And
that's a good saying.
Oh, thank you. He was 20 years older than me. And he was like, baby, I'd never choose that for myself. I like really strong women. And he'd been poly for 30 years as well. Like, I knew about his other partnerships, but he chose one particular partnership that just like went against all of my values. And I was just like, not my man. Like, if you're going to come to Asia and get yourself a super young, childlike girlfriend, I can't. And like, I thought that was my judgment and my problem. And I tried so hard to overcome that. And basically I said to him, I just need time. I need time to feel secure. I need time to feel important. And I knew what I represented in his life was the same as what he represented for me. We shared parts of ourselves that no one else in the world has ever seen. And he just was willing to discard all that to have this other girl. Wouldn't give me that time.
Damn, sounds pretty similar to me,
Yeah, it was just absolutely heartbreaking that what we shared was not important enough to give it what it needed to be solid. But at the end of the day, I can see, like, I can't erase those values. It was wrong of me to even think, like, I should be working through this and I should be okay with everything. What I can see now from the outside looking back is, like, that was never going to be okay with me because it goes against my core values of equality. Yeah. And if you, as a 60-year-old man, have a 30-year-old girlfriend to validate your masculinity and your dominance, then to me that's not true dominance. Like, I need equality, and I'm a strong and powerful woman, and it's not easy being an alpha woman in the world because it's not desired. You know, a lot of men just want easy. Relationships can be really hard, and they don't want a woman holding a mirror up to their face all the time and poking them in the chest and showing, hey, you're going unconscious right now. Hey, you're losing awareness. Hey, you're just falling back in bad habits. Hey, you've been playing computer games too much. Yeah. But that's what the feminine does. And if you really want that, if you want one of those relationships that will push you into greatness, you've got to be willing to look at yourself. And so he didn't want that. And he wants easy, as well as wanting me. But it was like, I recognize that pattern's out there in the world and you can't stop it. But in my intimate world and the man that I choose for myself, if he doesn't value equality in the same way and wants what I perceive to be exploitative relationships where there's a massive power imbalance to start with, then I'm not okay with that. There needs to be equality, and then we go into power exchange. And that's when I submit and give my power to you and you give me your dominance. But if you want to start on that uneven footing, I just can't respect it. It's so deep inside of me. Like, it's just not for me.
Fair. Well, you're in love with him?
Very.
Oh, that was straight, very.
Yeah. And I
didn't even finish the sentence.
Yep. I will think about that man the day that I die with so much love in my heart. Yeah.
How did you, what was your first steps of healing? Because I know, a lot of people listen to this have definitely had similar experiences, right? And especially because a lot of my listeners are men. who can't talk and don't know things. But like, what was your? How do you first go from healing from that? Like, you know, you recognize, right, this is not for me. Then you cut off contact. Is that what you do?
Yes.
Straight, you're like, bam, no contact. Or
I tried to make a friendship work.
Dude, you sound like me.
I really wanted to be like, okay, we're not compatible in this romantic relationship. For me to be as submissive as I was, to fully, like, to be so deep in that submission, I need to trust you implicitly, and I can't trust you now. But does that mean that I don't still love you and value you as a human being? We just cannot be in that dynamic if you don't give me the respect and the value my needs as much as I need them valued. So, and he said, I want you in my life for the next 20 years. I don't want to lose you. So we really were trying, but the sexual intensity was so strong and so hard not to just slip back into that where we didn't want to go. And then it was coupled with a very traumatic incident where I got broken into and was sexually assaulted by the man that broke into my house. And I called him and he's like, I'm too busy to come. And that is like the most devastating thing. Like, you're not there to protect me in this foreign patriarchal country where I didn't even call the police because the police are corrupt. The Petchalung or the village security came the next day, didn't believe me that it happened because they told me my fences were too high. I was just failed by the masculine on every level.
Fuck.
I felt no protection. So the breakup was like quadrupled in pain because I'm also managing an extreme trauma and the way that he failed me at those times. And I think his shame around how he responded to that was too big that he couldn't face me. And he just said, I can't be in your life anymore. And
he said that.
Yeah. So,
damn, that must have been.
Yeah, the healing from this scenario is much more significant and harder than most. But typically, when I end a relationship, the first thing I look at is like, this is here to serve me, and this I scripted this, I designed this. This was perfect. What was the perfection in it? How did it serve me? How have I grown? What goodness did I get? And then I have a look at the deeper layer of like, why am I in pain? What's the story that I'm creating around this? Like in my scenario, I felt abandoned. And then that hit into a deeper wound of like, everyone that loves me leaves me. And everyone that's told me they won't abandon me abandons me.
You literally sound like, I'm not lying. I swear to God.
So that's our stuff. That's our core wound that we need to do the work on. So then we need to soothe that part of ourselves.
How do you get over that? It's so hard because the wound is just, it like opens up something inside of me that turns me into a person I don't like, man. I start self-sabotaging in ways I don't want to do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just become a horrible person. How do you stop that?
Well, I think compassion and understanding for ourselves. Like I saw on your Instagram that you've been an addict in the past and so have I. Okay. And high five, it happens to the best of us. It's actually on my manifestation list that my ideal partner is someone that's overcome addiction, because I think the qualities it takes to get out of something like that is so powerful. We're both singles, it's all right. I'm joking. You can't really? Joking.
Sorry, what was that?
That's where this podcast was leading. You could have just asked me on a date, Adam.
Oh, damn. Before I cut you off, what were you saying about the addiction there? That sounded interesting.
It's a similar kind of quality, you know, what it took to get out of addiction. Well, let me ask you, when you think about that part of you that was addicted or that was acting to alleviate the pain that addiction covers, how do you feel about that part of yourself now?
That's a hard question. I don't know, if I'm honest right now. Like, I don't like that part of myself. I hate that part of myself. I'm aware it is part of me, though. I've had to accept it's part of me. I used to run away from it so much, deny it and say, no, I'm not this. But I've accepted that is part of me. It is a part of me I don't like. I have to be conscious every day to keep things on control. And that's why I have to avoid situations that put me in, it's like, I realise I'm not as independent as I think I am. Like, my thoughts and everything is also around people, and I do have vulnerability. I am weak. I'm not strong, as much as I think I am. Much as I go to the gym, I try. I am weak, and I'm susceptible to falling into a dark place. So I have to consciously...
well, I would rather call you fragile than weak.
Fragile, yeah. And I accept it.
Many of us are fragile. We're sensitive beings. And so we live in this very dysfunctional world that, nobody's thriving in. If you get real about it, no one thrives in this reality. We're all suffering on some level. So for me, the way I was able to turn around the relationship I have with my inner addict was understanding that, okay, that quality has both light and dark to it. It's not all bad. Okay. So how could the addict archetype inside of us also serve us? And so I broke down the word addict, and it means the ruthless pursuit of.
Is it?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so I now ask myself, what am I in the ruthless pursuit of? I'm like, oh man,
That makes sense.
my own growth.
Yeah.
I've taken that quality that used to head towards the meth pipe and turn it towards growth and love and expansion. So it's the very qualities that got me in there, that got me out of there. So it's by recognizing these parts of us that are in pain and giving them what they need. So that addict inside of me needed a lot of forgiveness and a lot of understanding, because she was the most pained, abused, neglected part of me from a life that I didn't choose. I didn't choose the early things that happened to me in my life. Not on a human level, on a soul level perhaps, but I was exposed to things in my childhood that left me very damaged, and no skills as a fragile, sensitive being to manage that pain. And then drugs were the fucking best thing in the world because I felt no pain.
Yeah.
I felt like
the best thing in the world.
Yeah, king shit. Like everyone, like, oh my God, why would I want normal reality?
Yeah.
So then as I've done this work on myself, my new reality is so much better than what drugs ever gave me, that drugs become this redundant, like, oh, I would never put that in my body now. I could not do that to myself. I don't want to come down. I don't want the feelings of having like chemicals in my body, but it's because life is now good. And that's actually what I was seeking through drugs.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a place that life was good. So when it comes to these vulnerable parts of us, this wounded part of you that's shut down, is to check in with him and care for him and find out what he needs. He needs some sort of soothing and compassion and understanding and protection that he didn't get through early life experiences, through relational experiences. And then once we start to heal and integrate those parts of ourselves, we become back in control. Because at the moment, that wounded part of you is controlling you by sabotage. Your conscious mind might be like, no, I'm good. I'm moving into this relationship. I'm keeping my heart open. I'm going to do the evolved thing. But the subconscious is like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to find a way to sabotage this. We're not going in this direction. So these two parts of you are pulling in opposite directions. And ultimately, once you become integrated and in love with every piece of you, then you can all consciously choose to move in the one direction, which is like to heal and to open and to grow and to experience. Remember at the talk that I gave on Thursday, it was like, it only ever gets better. Yeah. So if we can think about these past relationships that we had, as amazing as they were for all the goodness they brought us, there's actually something even better coming. I still don't believe you though, even when you say it. You think that's as good as it gets?
No, I don't think it's as good as, like, I don't know. It was, honestly, like, I'm not going to, honestly, like, the relationship I'm talking about, like, that's genuine, the first person I think I fell in love with. I've come from a very, like, probably similar to you. I was abused for like, most of my life, used and fucking abandoned. Like, I've literally had to start everything from my own, like, I had nothing, like, pretty much nothing all my life. Mm-hmm. And this was like, the first person who, like, I genuinely loved. Like, it's unconditional. I still love her to this day. Like, I still love her. And it appeared that she loved me. Like, I'm still battling it now. I found out, like, I don't want to get into it too much, but I still believe it. And I don't know, it holds something on to me. So, like, this individual, like, probably the first person I've truly loved for, like, who they are. Like, for who they are, like, she's a great person. Like, she's a healer. Like, she does stuff that's, like, I love that person. Genuine. And I think it come at a time where I didn't love myself first, so I loved her more than I loved myself, and I'm sort of transitioning out into right now. I need to start loving myself, because if I love myself first, then I can start loving other people. But I don't know if it'll get better, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's just the first person I loved. We were in love, I would say, from my perspective of this reality, and for it to end is just like, no, I'm like a fucking 4-year-old again. Like, honestly, like, if anyone's listening, like, especially men who've gone through this, like, just like, I went through bouts of depression, like, I just couldn't get out of bed. Like, honestly, like, I couldn't speak to anyone. And what was so mad was, like, even when I tried to speak to people, like, they didn't really give a fuck. Yeah. They don't really give a fuck. And, like, and when I said that publicly, people think I'm, like, seeking attention. I'm like, no, it's true. Like, genuinely, like, I was, like, fucking almost suicidal, like, fucking, and I know people are like, well, you overreacted. I'm like, no, bro, like, it's not like a one incident thing. This is like a whole lifetime. It's just like builds up into like, boom, and it comes out now. It's not like, oh, I broke up with this girl, I want to kill myself. It's like, no, like, it's just repetitive, and it goes on in my brain. And I wish people could see what goes on in my brain, because then they would understand. Yeah. And then, where am I going with this? Where am I going with it? Yeah, so when we broke up, it was just so fucking, and it was recent too, so very recent, and it was just so traumatic that I think I'm avoiding the pain, to be honest. Like, because I'm thinking now, if I get into another relationship, this is how it's going to fucking end. And I think, so it's not like I just might not get better. Because obviously there's like 8 billion people on Earth, right? There has to be, there has to be. But I don't know if I can handle what may happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I put a lot of trust in this person. That trust was abused. Like, that trust was abused to, like, where, like, abused. Like, similar to, like, when you have your morals and limits and that trust gets abused, you're like, fuck.
Especially when you've given them the
Everything.
vulnerable, sensitive inner world that you've not shared with anyone before. It feels like you've just been shattered. You know, someone's holding your precious little heart and just drops it and shatters it into a million pieces and doesn't care.
It's so hard.
But that's also a sign of a codependent relationship.
Yes, and I'm aware of that. Like, this is something I'm aware of, and this is where, like, I have to take my responsibility of.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as you do that work, the next relationship breakup won't be as bad because you've learnt now, like, wow, you could come into my life and love me and I can love you, but I won't do what I did last time, which is make you the source of everything.
Yes.
Because that's what puts me in that position of pain.
Yes.
Instead, I'm going to keep my heart in my hands and share love with you and be in the state or the field of love with you, but I'm not going to do what I learnt from the last one. Because I would say the same. He was like this balm to the wound that I'd had my entire life of feeling unloved and abandoned. And he came in and said, baby, I'd never abandon you. I can't tell you how many fucking times that man said, I'd never abandon you. And I fucking trusted it. But when did he abandon me? After I get broken in by some fucking awful human being who thinks they've got the entitlement to take. So, like, that is the abandonment of all abandonments to, like...
I know, I'm sorry you went through that, man.
Thank you. I know that it also serves something greater in my life. It's been a year now. This month has been 1 year, so I feel more empowered than I have all year, but I still haven't put all the pieces into place to truly understand why and to truly see the greatness that will come for me. It's definitely getting there, but there's still a big part of the unknown of, like, how the fuck did that happen to me?
Are you still searching for that? Because I always ask myself, why? And then I read stuff and it's like, you shouldn't do that. You should, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I really I'm a meaning assigning person.
Yeah.
So I try and choose the story that brings the feeling that I want. So I want to feel at peace with all of life and I want to feel empowered by all of life. So what is my relationship to that event? I need to find the thoughts that bring the feeling. So I do believe that, yes, we can have no meaning and blah, blah, but I'm like, I'm a fucking human being at the end of the day too. So if I'm putting myself under expectations that I'm just going to be in some Zen mastery of never having feelings or thoughts about anything, I'm going to fail at that.
Yeah.
If that comes naturally, fucking amazing. If that's a spontaneous sense of, like, it's just dissolved into nothingness now. It just feels like gratitude in my heart for all of my life experience. Awesome. But on the path to get to that place, then I have to assign a meaning that gives me the most power in the moment. So I knew at the time, even in the morning when I was crying, I'm like, I'm not letting that piece of shit take my faith that this is all working for me. And I was like, I remember crying saying, why'd this happen? Why'd this happen? Why'd this happen? And he said to me, my ex-partner's like, baby, you won't know that just yet. It's okay. Just, like...
He said that to
you? Yeah.
He was.
I know. He was an extraordinary man.
Yeah.
But there was a very ordinary man hiding behind that he didn't show me. And I wish he had, because I would have loved it. I would have loved those vulnerable, insecure parts of him. But, yeah, I cannot deny that man has extraordinary qualities in him, and I see where I bring out the best in people. And I have to be very careful when I go into relationships not to just bring out their best and then think that's who I'm relating with. How they operate in the rest of the world without me present is the truth of who they are, but I don't want to see it. I put on my rose-coloured glasses and I see only what I want to see.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that pattern a lot of times. It's like, wow, they're an extraordinary person with me, but then in their other relationships or in these other areas of life, they're completely different. Yeah. So in this current relationship, this 3-week container that we've committed to, I've said, please show me all of you. Please, if you feel insecure, if there's something about you that you feel you need to hide from me, please don't hide it from me. Please come forward and share it with me, knowing that I will accept all of you. But I just don't want to get caught in that old pattern of only seeing the extraordinary bits and then deluding myself that, of course, this is a human being that's going to have fault as well. So in this current relationship, in terms of codependency, we've both agreed to try and reach the highest states that we can sexually and emotionally and spiritually without attaching to the other one, without making it.
Do you make how do you do that? Where do you think it works?
Give me the A to Z, Erin. I need a checklist.
It's new to me. That's the thing. So yeah.
Well, he's very trained and experienced in Tantra, and I'm very trained and experienced in BDSM. So we both have these
That's good. That's a good mix.
And I wouldn't say that he's got the dark masculine in him, which I need. And he said to me, I think you like these things in BDSM because it makes you feel loved. I'm like, it is. It's true. If you go to this place where you feel like absolutely worthless through degradation or humiliation and someone still wants you there, it makes you feel loved. And if someone's restraining you with chains and you can't escape, you feel desired.
Yeah.
It soothes your attachment issues so much because I'm like, I'm just a chained up little sex slave. I'm so happy. Don't make that a reel on Instagram, please.
That's exactly what that's the intro. That's the intro. That's it. We've got the intro, the thumbnail. Damn, that's going to... The views are going to go crazy.
So this new lover said, I think you do those things to feel loved, and I want to show you there's other ways to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm open to that. If you want to take me through the light paths, is like, yes, potentially my sexuality is tied into experiences, or love has been painful for me in the past, and therefore I have this association with the darkness or pain being an expression of love. But I also have an incredible amount of unconditional love and lightness and divinity in me too, and I can go to those places, absolutely. But I could see that there was slightly a judgment for him perhaps, or a misunderstanding of like, well, that's not the right path to get there. If I can take her there through love and lightness, then that's how I want to go. That's the path I want to take. But for me, they're both sacred. They're both amazing and equally as powerful. And now I can recognize, actually, this primal sexuality in me is not something I choose. It's a very inherent part of who I am, and there's nothing bad and wrong with it. I think we just don't really have many examples to see it as a loving act. So I could see in him just about to reach that place, and I was like, turning into an animal, and he held back from me. And when we were talking about it afterwards, he said, I couldn't feel your heart in that moment. And I can understand why he would perceive that, but for me, it's actually love that lets me get to that place. It's only because there's love present and I feel accepted and I feel seen and I feel cherished that I could get to that place. But I don't think he has yet been in those realms and been able to interpret that as a loving thing. If you only see that kind of more aggressive or violent sexuality, your first assumption is it's abusive.
Yeah, it's hard. I like BDSM. It's hard for like me also. This is also another thing for like new relationships. It's very hard, I think, to sort of bring that up.
Well, you could go on a podcast and say, I'm a happy little sex slave, and just let everyone know.
In the middle, like, don't do that. Don't do that. It's definitely... Is it still taboo? Do people still... Is it still taboo?
I think the younger generation is making it much more accessible and mainstream. Mm-hmm. I think the older... How old are you?
29.
Oh, you're a baby. I'm 40. So, like...
So my ex was 43.
Oh, right. So you like... My partners are older than me too. There's a maturity that I'm seeking that just tends to come through older men. It's not actually an age thing for me, but I just love to feel the mature masculine.
Yeah.
So I'm not interested in men that are still behaving like overgrown teenage boys. So it just tends to... I can spot it in men immediately, their level of maturity of their masculine energy. And same with women. You can spot the women that are still stuck in their girl psychology immediately. Where are we going with that question? Was there a question?
Just talking about sex.
BDSM. Is it taboo? So I think it used to be.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays... it's far more common. But I still think most people are relating to BDSM on a very superficial level.
What
like
do you mean by that?
Anyone can spank. Like, oh yeah, okay, let me tie your wrist behind your back and give you a spanking. And then there's a real spanking. Yeah. There is like a place that you go that's so deep and so intimate and requires so much trust.
That's it, man.
So far beyond just a superficial, let me spank you around, let me slap you, let me choke you, let me put these ropes on your arms. Like, for me, the deepest BDSM I've been involved in is the psychological side, where like it's just a fucking look and you're like, oh, I'm fucked. I'm in so much trouble right now and I love it. And then I've had other people give me a full impact session and I'm just like,
really?
Yep. Like there's no mental connection, there's no emotional connection. So the physical plane is very dull to me if it's not innovated and alive from the mental and emotional. You have to be in a
relationship, right? You can't you can't do it on the first date.
Yeah, I don't believe in casual BDSM.
It's impossible. Like, me neither. Like I just go for it's me neither. I think it's just because what I like sexually is probably similar. Like I like the mental connection, like the deep connection where you're one, and like it's just you are exploring. There's like no limits to a degree, and you just.
And it takes so much, like if any of us were standing on the edge of a massive canyon, a huge void, we'd all be scared. We'd all kind of just pull back from the edge and just be like, oof. So if we're going to do that together, like if we're going to jump out of a plane, you hold on to each other. Or if you go into the dark forest where everyone tells you not to go, there's like an intimacy that's created just because we're choosing to go and face something that's unknown and scary. Like we could walk through the forest during the daytime, like Tantra, and be like, wow, this is so beautiful. We're so present with each other. But if you walk through the same forest at nighttime, we're like, don't let me go. Yeah. And that's why I like dark sexuality, because I think there's more intimacy and more trust to be built and more rewards.
Fair enough, and you can't do that you can't do that with someone you just met.
No.
That's why I was asking about this guy that you met. Have you? So you know him for a long time. So it's not it's not like a first meeting, or is it?
Yeah, it's new. It's fresh. It's quite amazing. Okay, so I identify as a demisexual, and his dating profile also says demisexual, which is very unheard of.
I identify as a demigod.
Me too, kind of. But demisexual means that you need emotional connection to feel arousal.
Wow.
So that's why I can't have casual sex, because literally if you don't give me that emotional intimacy and emotional bonding, I don't actually even feel arousal. I can go fully asexual and not have sex for a year. But if my heart is captivated, my heart is cherished and loved and ravished, oh my God, I'm the most sexual woman on the planet. Like it all unlocks once my heart is being met. So the fact that this guy identified like that, I was like, okay, he knows a thing or two about the heart and about the feminine heart and how to cherish the feminine heart to open and unfold feminine sexuality. So it's the guy I spoke about at the...
Okay, yeah, the guy, okay.
To give a bit of backstory, his first text to me was overtly sexual and said, I can't wait to fuck you like this. And it just made me retract. I was like, mate, I do not speak like that with people I don't have that connection with. And I responded and said, I don't have sexual conversations with strangers until I've got an emotional connection. And he said he received that really well. And so actually the first time that we decided to meet was on Zoom. And I really appreciate that he even put that forward. It was like a nice kind of interim step where it's not too much commitment involved. I don't have to leave the house. Like, it's just safe to meet on Zoom. And so we met on Zoom, and you know what it's like. It's like, oh, can you hear me? Just this second. And then we both dropped into silence. It was the most unbelievably profound connection. Like I could feel his energy, and it just immediately grounded me and sunk me. And we just sat there in silence for like a minute or two, just breathing together. And I was like, holy fuck. That's why I wasn't a no to this. Like on some level, I knew that there was a very profound potential there. So we sat on Zoom for 2.5 hours and just connected. We went through our BDSM check-in, which we talked about as well, which is like, what's our relationship status? What are our boundaries? What are our desires? What's our STI or sexual health status? And what meaning are we assigning to this? And so just by going through that process, I was like, this is a thing, isn't it? Neither of us had actually said, like, we want this thing. It just didn't even need to be said. We were just in this experience. So I've had so much triggered and so much to work through already just in a very short period of time, because it's so much like my past relationship. Like he is reaching parts of me deep inside me that only the previous lover had been able to do.
Beautiful. And
so there's a lot of grief and a lot of sadness, and he can hold space for that. Like his profile actually says, I can hold big energy. And I was like, that's the kind of man
me.
I need. How much can you hold? Because I've got a lot of amperage over here. And he can really do it. He can be in it. And he's done a lot of work on himself. And have you read any of David Data's books?
No.
It's about spirituality and sexuality. He's done a lot of work with David Data over time. And
oh, really?
So, yeah, I really appreciate someone that's mastered their sexuality or applied themselves to really learn the skill in that way. And he wants to be pushed. He's like, I want you to show me where I'm holding back. I want you to show me where I'm in fear. And I really value that in the masculine as well, because he's not looking for easy.
Yeah.
Even though he had a 31-year-old girlfriend.
Hello,
Trigger Central. I was like, okay, this is a man in his 60s with a 30-year-old girlfriend, the same as my last partner.
Oh, he's in his 60s?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so you like older men.
I like maturity.
Well,
if that maturity came through a man in his 40s and his 50s, I would be happy with any of it. It just happens to be that life has brought me this depth of partnership through men that are 60.
Fair enough.
So it is what it is. I don't judge. I think I told you this already. I don't judge people on the outer layer, on the looks, the money, the car, the followers.
Yeah, you said that in the...
I'm looking for something much deeper, and these men have that thing.
That's cool. And okay, so we've talked a lot about sex, yeah. But let's go back into like a relationship. Are you looking for a relationship, like an actual long-term relationship?
Definitely, yes.
Do you think like say dating this guy? How do you go into that? Are you like, do you go, okay, I'm gonna say this guy, for example, it's all, I imagine it's all around sexuality and it's in you and your mind. But is there a bit you going, oh, like this would be cool to be in a relationship with? Do you have them thoughts?
Yes.
Or you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically when I decided to get back into online dating just recently, I was like, I'm very clear now on what I want, and I want either the perfect fuck buddy or my baby daddy. And I don't want anything in the middle.
That's good. At least you know what you want.
Yeah, because I bond. My heart wants to bond to those sexual experiences. And I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to tie myself in some murky middle ground with someone that's never going to be what I truly want. So either we keep it super clear and defined as fuck buddies from the beginning, which means we're invested and connected to each other, but not murky, bonded, attached, entwined. Or I'm looking for the one, essentially. So when this guy came into my reality, I knew that he's here for 3 weeks. We decided to go into it, and my mindset is like, go into this and get everything that you can from it that will lead you to the one. So if I have all this pain, if my heart has been closed for a year, I've been operating from the masculine for a year, and I'm really sad that my heart is closed and guarded, and I think this guy can help me. So God bless the man that can be there and help me navigate so much pain, and then just send me off into the world to continue on my path. You know, like that's a really special man that wants to serve me in that way. And that's exactly what he offered. So for me, it's like, okay, will this help me get to my ultimate goal? Or is this a distraction? Is this going to occupy a space in my life that I want available for someone else? So it's kind of like high level relating for sure, to be that aware and to be able to have those kind of conversations in relationship. Someone that can meet me in that way and talk through that stuff and like help me process all of those triggers and not take it on, not make it personal. Like, it's quite exceptional. It's very impressive.
It's good.
I'm impressed.
Sounds like you're, hopefully he is this. Sounds like you're impressed. And what is
And thank God he's in his 60s, because if he was 40, I'd be like, damn, I'm going to get attached to this guy. But it's almost like he's so not suitable for a life partner that I call it getting cock-blocked. Like, God has cock-blocked me, so I can't actually settle here. I can't stay here. Get in, get what you need, keep going.
And what is the one for you then? The one for you is everything you've just described, right?
Yeah, I need a man that has that emotional capacity for sure. A man that can challenge my mind. Like, I'm very much an intellectual and I love mental exploration. So he has to be intelligent, has to have a heart that's got a deep, deep capacity. His sexuality has to be able to match mine. And ultimately wants to be a dad and wants to be a great dad. So if I'm looking for my equal, not the same, not something that's the same as me. I want something that's actually quite polarized and different, complementary, but something that's got my capacity. Like, surely there is a man out there. This is a bit of a joke of mine. I'm looking for a bisexual porn star with the heart of Jesus Christ.
I know some.
It's ridiculous to say, but like, people that are porn stars can fuck like that, you know, they've mastered their sexuality. So that's kind of what I'm talking to there. Bisexuality, it's not necessary. I'm bisexual, but someone whose sexuality is fluid and open, to be able to, like, I want deep, deep loyalty. I want nothing to come between me and him, but from that place that we explore together. But I don't know, maybe I will feel monogamous for the first time in my life when I have truly am being met like that. I'm open to that being the case, but now when I think about monogamy, I'm like, I feel constricted. And then when I think about poly and open relating, I'm like, no, I don't want to share my man. So I'm trying to find this middle ground of the right amount of devotion and the right amount of play and exploration, but never at the sacrifice of our bond and our connection and loyalty. And then the heart of Jesus Christ, I say that in a non-religious sense, but just that Christ consciousness, that divine masculine, you know, a man that is deeply, deeply connected to his loving heart and is committed to keeping his heart open and operating from, like, leading from his heart. Yeah. That's a taller, and I would love him to be tall because obviously I'm very tall.
Anything else?
You should see the size of my list. It's insane.
You've got a list.
Yes,
Got a list.
yes.
Okay.
I just wrote it this week after having breakfast with some friends who both attracted their dream partnership. And I said to them, what was happening in life just before this happened? Like, what was your process? What were you going through? And both of them said they got really clear on what they wanted. And so I sat there and I was like, okay, heart, mind. What did I say? Heart, mind, sexuality. I don't think I said body, but lifestyle. Like, break those things down. What does the man with the mind like mine look like? What does the man with the heart like mine look like? So I just spent one afternoon by the pool and wrote it all out. And I was like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. That man's going to be insane.
Yeah, fucking porn star Jesus. I'm just imagining
porn
now.
Star Jesus.
7-foot porn star Jesus.
That summarizes my list perfectly.
Someone's out there. Someone is out there.
Well, hopefully he's out there looking for like a little whore of a Mother Mary or a Mary Magdalene. I'm here.
What's your thoughts on society's how would I put this? Like society's judgment on women having sex with too many people?
Yeah, I've got some strong feelings about this actually.
Say them. Well, yeah, it's open, but there's no limits here in this podcast.
I can see why sexuality has been stunted for all of us, why the powers that be want all of us to not truly understand how powerful we are sexually. It keeps us compliant. So women in particular, in a patriarchal ruling world, their sexuality is very powerful, and it makes men feel very powerless to it when a woman's truly in her sexual power. And so they want to shame that and shut that down even more so that it doesn't disrupt the patriarchy. And so the power that be stays in the hands of whom it's in the hands of. So if we didn't have that architecture in our society, if we didn't have that systemic shaming and control of women's sexuality, I think the highest state that women can achieve is a very sexualized state, is being fully alive with their sexual energy and their being abundant in that energy and sharing it and feeling safe in the world to do so and not having that mean something about them. Because at the moment, if you show your sexuality, if you turn the volume up on it in the way that you carry yourself, there's something different between I just dress like this and I actually am this thing, and you could cover me head to toe and I'm still this thing. And I could walk through the street completely covered and men will still feel like, oh. Not even just men, but anyone could respond to that kind of sexuality. So that's what I think we should be. That's what I think our highest potential is. But the world's not really ready for that. So unfortunately, there are these societal consequences for becoming a very sexual woman that a lot of people don't want to experience. So they just don't follow this path. But when you are evolved and fully expressing your sexuality, you also have very high standards. So it's not necessarily about the quantity of people that you're having sex with. It's about like a limitless sexuality with the right people. So in those kind of cases, the right people will never judge you. If there's anyone that's judging you based on how many sexual partners you've had or how sexually prolific you are or your kinks or anything like that, they're not the right people, because people who truly work on their sexuality revere it and desire it and protect it.
Interesting.
Does that answer the question?
It is. It's interesting to get your perspective. Yeah, it's interesting. I watch a lot of stuff about that, especially on TikTok these days. Things are coming up. Is it right or wrong? Another question. Do you think this is a TikTok question?
Great.
Do you think it's worse if a woman cheats on a man or if a man cheats on a woman? Do you think there's any difference?
Oh.
And I'm going to put a disclaimer, because on TikTok people say in normal society that a man can have emotional sex with a woman, and for a woman to have sex with a man, there's emotion attached to it. So a man can go out and just fuck something and not care, like literally fuck it and then go home and then not give second thought. But for a woman to allow another man to sleep with her, there has to be some sort of emotional connection there. And in society, I actually agree, like emotional cheating is far worse than you just fuck someone. And this is my perception. So what do you think?
Well,
I could be wrong.
I think any kind of cheating or betrayal, I'm against.
Yeah.
I really think that we should be really open and honest and transparent in our relationships and say, I have desire for this. If it's done in a deceitful way, it's very, very destructive. But if it's done in an open and conscious way, it carries less destruction. So that's one part. Just as a basic rule, it doesn't matter who's doing this deceitful, destructive behaviour, it's bad.
Okay.
But I think the only men that can go out and fuck a lot of women and not care about it are men who are not deeply connected to their hearts.
Yeah.
And I think that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
I do not think that that is the healthy masculine. But what's very common on this planet at the moment is not a healthy masculine. Mm-hmm. So we have this like, yeah, I can go fuck these girls and it doesn't mean anything. Yes. And if you're truly connected to your heart and living your highest integrity, would it mean nothing? Would you be sleeping with people with whom it means nothing? Would you be doing that to a woman whose heart is involved? You know, and I think if we generalize, say women have their heart involved, yes, but there's certainly some women that don't. And their sexual expression is to be able to have very casual and non-connected sex, and that's also okay. But I think at our highest levels of consciousness, when we're very connected to our hearts, nothing is meaningless and nothing is didn't mean anything, I just fucked her and it's done.
I agree with that.
So I would like to see more men connected to their heart and making sexual choices from a heart-based place and keeping their heart open throughout the entire sexual experience, before, during and after, and not be disconnected and not ghost or emotionally ghost afterwards. And if that were the case, then I think we'd be having a very different debate.
Yeah. Fair enough. And why do you think people cheat? I know it's a broad question, but...
I think many of us don't get our needs met in relationships.
Yeah, but why not just be honest? I mean, like, I don't... Because I agree, like, I think you should sleep with who you want, as long as you're honest with it. Like, honest with the person about, listen, this is... Mm-hmm. Why do you think people aren't honest, though?
Because they're afraid of rejection or losing something. They feel like the way that the modern society structures relationships right now is so dysfunctional and doesn't suit the majority of people. So they're in these heteronormative, monogamous relationships when maybe that doesn't fit for them, and they don't feel the freedom to actually be able to say, hey, I want to try something different. Or women have been raised to think, like, if he desires me, I'm wanted, and if he wants to sleep with that woman, then that means I'm not good enough. So then you're afraid to tell her because she's going to get really upset about it or take it personally, and it's actually not about her at all. It's like a level of consciousness thing. If we can all get to that place where we feel whole and we feel okay and solid inside of ourselves, then yeah, you can go and sleep with someone else and it's not a reflection of me. But if we've got that inner wounding, which we all do, then often that makes it not so possible.
Yeah. And I don't condone cheating in any aspect.
Have you ever cheated?
Yes, I have. I'm been cheated on. Why? I was young, man. That's not a reason, but that was a time when I was heavily doing like drugs, alcohol, drinking. I've never actually cheated sober, ever. But just, I think, easy. Like, honestly, 100%. And I say this hand on heart. I've learned, I did a lot of mushroom experiences, right? So I've learned the actual pain I've caused by by first of all lying, by cheating, because you think it's not a big deal, right? You think you're going to get away with it, but even if you do get away with it, you don't, because you are now that person. Deep down, when you have to look at yourself, you are a liar and you are a cheater, and that's what you've done. You've hurt people, even if the girl never finds out. But the girl I was talking about, she cheated on me, and I just didn't understand, because we had an open relationship too, and I found out it was like a year affair.
Isn't this crazy that cheating can happen in open relationships?
Yeah, and I didn't understand it. Like, it was sort of an open relationship of like, we're very honest and open with each other, and then I find out like she's fucking talking to some, I don't know, I had no idea why she was talking to him, but she was just talking to some guy for years, and I'm just like, this is karma. This is karma, man. This is karma. But yeah, I have cheated in the past, something I'm not proud of. And I actually think, as human beings, this is my perception, we have to do things like that to learn.
Yes, I agree.
But the point is you learn. Like,
yes.
It's not judgmental or shame. It's like, okay, I've done something wrong. So many things in life, you do something wrong and you learn from that mistake. You have to make mistakes to learn from the mistakes.
I agree.
This is my opinion. So yeah, I have... something I wouldn't do now, like I can't, because I need that heart, like I need, and this is probably the codependent part, right, this is where I am right now, but I physically can't, even when I was with her, she was the most beautiful woman I've ever met, and I could never, ever sleep or touch another woman, ever, and we had a bit of a long distance relationship, and I've had opportunities, hell of opportunities, but it's just in my mind now. It's not that I'm saying I'm proud I don't cheat. It's like, it should be normal, right? You should be proud that you don't cheat. Like, but like, never ever would I even consider touching another woman or talking to another. Never ever. But in the past version of me, absolutely, man. Something I'm not proud of. But learn from your mistakes, and I think it's important. I think it's important at some point to cheat. Weird, like, not to cheat, but yeah, you have to make a mistake and then learn from it. I think people's problem is they don't learn from it, and they just continue doing it because they get away with it. Yeah, and it doesn't hurt them, but then they don't understand like the fucking impact it has on that, like on you as even if you're a man or a woman watching this, and if you do cheat and you do lie, even if they don't know, you're literally killing this is my opinion, you're killing yourself inside, and one day you're going to have to face that reality. Yeah, it's integrity. Yeah. You know you're acting out of integrity, and it's going to eat you away. Yeah, one day, you might be 50, 60, doesn't matter how old you are, one day that's going to come back and you're going to be like, fuck. Yeah. Like, what am I? Who am I? Like, what have I done? Like, yeah. But yeah, have you ever cheated? No, I haven't actually. Oh, wow. I have definitely pushed the boundaries in emotional connection. What does that mean? I've had emotional intimacy with people outside of my marriage that probably wasn't appropriate or was hurting my partner. Oh, that's kind of borderline. Yeah, but it was never physical, but definitely was sharing emotional intimacy with others. And I've been with married men, so I've been like the other woman. Oh. Yeah. Damn, we actually don't have much time to talk about it. That's a whole other podcast. Episode 2. Why have we said that towards the end? Cliffhanger. Tease. Wow. Quickly, just this. I'm glad you said that. So you have actual physical cheating, like physical. But I think, well, look, what is cheating? It's lying to your partner. Yeah. Like about breaking the boundaries of the relationship. Okay. And if you haven't consciously had a conversation about what those boundaries are, you may be cheating and not realizing. Someone may be watching porn, feels like they're being cheated on. That's a good point, actually. And other people might be like, oh, if you didn't stick your dick in her, it didn't matter. Yeah. So without having a clear agreed upon, mutually consented definition of what are the boundaries of this relationship, then cheating's happening all day, every day, without even realizing, and could cause a lot of pain and destruction with you having no idea. So I think it's really important to define that, and then once that's defined, then you know very well where that line of integrity lands. That's a good point, because like I considered like, no, that's a great point. That's a great point, because I don't consider like just fucking as cheating. It's like if you're doing something that's disrespectful, that's outside of what we've agreed to, and you're hiding it from me on a continual basis. I don't know if it's called cheating, but whatever the fuck it is, it's not good. It's the same sort of thing. Disrespectful, cheating, it's not. Betrayal, but that's the right word. Yeah, you're betraying the relationship. Damn right, we don't really have more time to talk about you being on the other side. But anything else you want to close with? Anything? Do you want to tell people where to find you? Yes, well, my name is Erin Kyna. Kyna. It's not Kyna, it's Kyna. Kyna, Kyna. So I made that name up, essentially. I'll tell you that in an episode or two. You made it up? Yeah, so I am the only Erin Kyna on the planet, so it's very easy to find me. What's your real name? Well, my maiden name before I got married was Erin Barclay. Barclay. Okay. And then when we got married, I was in a same-sex marriage, and it wasn't legally recognised in Australia, so we both chose to take on a new name, which was Kyna. So Erin Kyna is very easy to find. So I have Instagram, I have got Facebook. I also have a previous podcast called Sex and Healing, and I'm about to launch a second podcast where I'll have this fantastic hand model that you may recognise from certain tattoos you've seen before. Here we go. So yeah, that podcast is going to be called Romantic Hardcore, which is like the perfect definition of who I am. I'm interested. Check out Romantic Hardcore when it comes out. Yeah, so that'll be coming soon. And Erin Kyna, Kyna. Yeah, perfect. So I do coaching, like I do one-on-one coaching for women and men and couples, and we can cover anything in the realms of sexuality and healing. So I just had a new client reach out to me about starting an open relationship for the first time, transitioning a monogamous marriage into an ethically non-monogamous. So getting support around that. So I love it all. I love it all. Anything sex, anything relationships, everything, anything intimacy, healing. I'm just like super passionate. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for having me. Woo! Awesome chat. Outro. Perfect. Thank you. My pleasure.